Ashtotar Sada Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Gaur. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Vishitaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Open the book. Cell phones off. Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Canto 2, Chapter 7, Text 51. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yat Me Bhagavata Uditam Sangrahaha Ayam Vibhutinam Tvam Etat Vipuli Kuru Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yanme Bhagavato Ditam Sangraho yang vibhutinam Tvametad vipuli kuru Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yanme Bhagavato Ditam Sangraho yang vibhutinam Tvametad vipuli kuru. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yanne Bhagavato Ditam Sangraho yang vibhutinam Tvametad vipuli kuru Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yanme Bhagavato Ditam Sangraho yang vibhutinam Tvametad vipuli kuru Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yanme Bhagavato Ditam Sangraho yang vibhutinam Tvametad vipuli kuru Idam Bhagavatam Nama Me Bhagavato Ditam Sangraho yang vibhutinam Tvametad vipuli kuru. Ladies, Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yanme Bhagavato Ditam Sangraho yang vibhutinam Tvametad vipuli kuru. Ladies, please. No? Okay. Idam, this. Bhagavatam, the science of Godhead. Nama, of the name. Yet, that which may unto me. Bhagavata, by the personality of Godhead. Uditam, enlightened. Sangahaha, is the accumulation of. I am his. Vibhutinam, of the diverse potencies. Tvam, your good self. Etat, this science of Godhead. Vipuli, expand. Kuru, do it. Translation. O Narada, this is Brahma speaking to Narada. O Narada, this science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was spoken as the accumulation of his diverse potencies. Please expand this science yourself. Purport. The Bhagavatam, in a nutshell, spoken by the Personality of Godhead in about half a dozen verses, which will appear ahead, is the science of God, and it is the potent representation of the Personality of Godhead. He, being absolute, is non-different from the science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahmaji received the science of Godhead from the Lord directly, and he handed over the same to Narada, who in his turn ordered Srila Vyasadeva to expand it. So the transcendental knowledge of the Supreme Lord is not mental speculation by the mundane wranglers, but is uncontaminated, eternal, perfect knowledge beyond the jurisdiction of material modes. The Bhagavad Purana is therefore the direct incarnation of the Lord in the form of transcendental sound, and one should receive this transcendental knowledge from the bona fide representative of the Lord in the chain of disciplic succession, from the Lord to Brahmaji, from Brahmaji to Narada, from Narada to Vyas, from Vyasadeva to Shukadeva Goswami, from Shukadeva Goswami to Sutta Goswami. The ripened fruit of the Vedic tree drops from one hand to another without being broken by falling suddenly from a high branch down to the earth. Therefore, unless one hears the science of Godhead from the bona fide representative of the disciplic succession, as above mentioned, for one to understand the theme of the science of Godhead will be a difficult job. It should never be heard from the professional Bhagavatam reciters who earn their livelihood by gratifying the senses of the audience. I'll read the next verse, text 52. Yatha harau bhagavati nirnam bhaktir bhavishyati saravatma yakhiladhare iti sankalpya varnaya. Please describe the science of Godhead with determination and in a manner by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service under the personality of Godhead Hari, the supersoul of every living being and the summum bonum, source of all energies. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is the philosophy of devotional service and the scientific presentation of man's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prior to the age of Kali, human society gradually became influenced by force. Prior to the age of Kali, there was no need for such a book of knowledge to know the Lord and his potential energies. But with the beginning of the age of Kali, human society gradually became influenced by four sinful principles, namely illegitimate connection with women, intoxication, gambling, and unnecessary killing of animals. Because of these basic sinful acts, man gradually became forgetful of his eternal relationship with God. Therefore, man became blind, so to speak, to his ultimate goal of life. The ultimate goal of life is not to pass a life of irresponsibility like the animals and indulge in a polished way in the four animal principles, namely eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. For such a blind human society in the darkness of ignorance, Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight to see things in proper perspective. Therefore it was necessary to describe the science of God from the very beginning or from the very birth of the phenomenal world. As we have already explained, Srimad Bhagavatam is so scientifically presented that any sincere student of this great science will be able to understand the science of God simply by reading it with attention or simply by regularly hearing it from the bona fide speaker. Everyone is hankering after happiness in life, but in this age the members of human society, blind as they are, do not have the proper vision that the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all happiness, because He is the ultimate source of everything. Janmadhyasya yataha. Happiness in complete perfection without hindrance can be achieved only by our devotional relationship with Him. And it is only by His association that we can get free of distressful material existence. Even those who are after the enjoyment of this material world can also take shelter of the great science of Srimad Bhagavatam, and they will be successful at the end. Narada is therefore requested or ordered by his spiritual master to present this science with determination and in good plan. Narada was never advised to preach the principles of Bhagavatam to earn a livelihood. He was ordered by his spiritual master to take the matter very seriously in a missionary spirit. Then the next verse after this, Mayang varniyato mushya ishvarasyanumoditaha shinvata shadhaya nityang Mayayatma namuhyati. The Lord's activities in association with His different energies should be described, appreciated, and heard in accordance with the teachings of the Supreme Lord. If this is done regularly with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord. Purport: the science of learning a subject matter seriously is different from the sentiments of fanatics. Fanatics or fools may consider the Lord's activities in relation with the external energy to be useless for them, and they may falsely claim to be higher participants in the internal energy of the Lord. But factually, the Lord's activities in relation with the external energy and the internal energy are equally good. On the other hand, those who are not completely free from the clutches of the Lord's external energy should devoutly hear regularly about the activities of the Lord in relation with the external energy. They should not foolishly jump up to the activities of the internal energy, falsely attracted by there's a word missing here. Falsely attracted by the Lord's internal potential activities like His Ras Leela. I'll just make a note of that. It's been converted into Indian English. Should not foolishly jump up to the activities of the internal energy, falsely attracted by the Lord's internal potential activities like His Rasa Leela. The cheap reciters of the Bhagavatam are very much enthusiastic about the Lord's internal potential activities, and the pseudo-devotees absorbed in material sense enjoyment falsely jump to the stage of liberated souls and thus fall down deeply into the clutches of external energy. Some of them think that to hear about the pastimes of the Lord means to hear about His activities with the gopis, or about His pastimes like lifting the Govardhan hill, and have nothing to do with the Lord's plenary expansions as the Purusha avatars and their pastimes of the creation, maintenance, or annihilation of the material worlds. But a pure devotee knows that there is no difference between the pastimes of the Lord, either in Ras Leela or in creation, maintenance, or destruction of the material world. Rather, the descriptions of such activities of the Lord as the Purusha avatars are specifically meant for persons who are in the clutches of the external energy. Topics like the Rasa Lila are meant for the liberated souls and not for the conditioned souls. The conditioned souls therefore must hear with appreciation and devotion the Lord's pastimes in relationship with the external energy, and such acts are as good as hearing of Rasa Lila in the liberated stage. A conditioned soul should not imitate the activities of liberated souls. Lord Sri Chaitanya never indulged in hearing the Rasa Lila with ordinary men. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Science of God, the first 9 cantos prepare the ground for hearing the 10th canto. This will be further explained in the last chapter of this canto. In the 3rd canto, it will be more explicit. A pure devotee of the Lord therefore must begin reading or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the very beginning and not from the 10th canto. We have several times been requested by some so-called devotees to take up the 10th canto immediately, but we have refrained from such an action because we wish to present Srimad Bhagavatam as the science of Godhead and not as a sensuous understanding for the conditioned souls. This is forbidden by such authorities as Sri Brahmaji. By reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam as a scientific presentation, the conditioned souls will gradually be promoted to the higher status of transcendental knowledge after being freed from the illusory energy based on sense enjoyment. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 2nd canto, 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Shreshtham Manamapi Shachiputram Atra Surupam Rupam Tasya Agrajamurupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We learn many important points from these shlokas and from the purports. Now, we might think that this is just something which was written down a long time ago, and what relevance does it have to us? In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that prior to the age of, in the purport of text 52, Srila Prabhupada writes that prior to the age of Kali, there was no need of such a book as the Srimad Bhagavatam to know the Lord and His potential energies. That means His material, and in this context, that means His energies for creating the material world, which includes, by the Amrakana Nyaya, the logic of a mango grove, the energy for maintaining and destroying also. The logic of a mango grove is that there may be a plantation of mango trees, and among them there may be a few coconut trees. Coconut with mango, not so likely. Lychee or chiku. But because the majority is the mangoes, so it's called a mango grove. It doesn't have to be all mangoes. So we hear more in Shastra about how the Lord creates the world, the specific mechanisms by which He does that. Not so much about how He maintains it or destroys it. So prior to the age of Kali, there was no need for such a book of knowledge. Of course, Srimad Bhagavatam is eternal, as Krishna is eternal, as we are eternal. But it manifests at different times in human society or in the society of the highly elevated rishis. It may manifest in somewhat different form, but it's Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam, scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam was required for Kali Yuga. It needed to be written down because people have degraded or are in the process of becoming degraded. Already degraded, but becoming more and more so, and especially the four sinful principles are mentioned here: illegitimate connection with women, intoxication, gambling, and unnecessary killing of animals. So this Bhagavatam is completely relevant to our life, much more so than the newspaper. We were saying, well, the newspaper, that has some practical knowledge about what's going on in the world. But that's all temporary. It comes and goes, whatever is going on in the world. But the knowledge of Bhagavatam, that gives us the basis for understanding our eternal existence in relationship with the personality of Godhead. So many things come and go. We may be afraid there may be so many wars coming. But the history of the world, especially in Kali Yuga, is a history of wars. That's killing, hingsa, pratihingsa. This just going on and on and on. We may be shocked that, so many people getting killed in Syria, violence on the India-Pakistan border. It's going on. It will go on. As long as the effects of Kali Yuga are there. But the Bhagavatam is meant for driving away the influence of Kali Yuga. Why is there war and fighting and distress? It all springs from the sinful consciousness of people in ignorance who think that life is meant for enjoying the senses. So Bhagavatam is meant for giving light to dispel that ignorance. Therefore, after Krishna left this world, he remained in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishne swadhamo pagate dharma jnana dibhi saha kalo nashta drishamesha puranaka dunoditaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam has arisen just like the sun rises to dispel the darkness. For Krishna, he also rose. He's known as Krishna Avatar, which means he comes down. He comes down and he goes up. He comes down from his own abode, the spiritual world, then he goes back up, and he is the very personality of dharma, of spiritual knowledge. So we might think, well, that will go with him. Yes, it goes with him, but it stays here also, in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are many important instructions herein, in these verses and purports about how the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam, how it is transmitted, how it should go on being transmitted. Brahma said, I heard this Bhagavatam in seed form from the personality of Godhead. He explains it to Narad and says, you should expand it. Expand it means spread it widely and discuss the topics more and more. And that's going on, because whereas in material life everything results in destruction, but spiritual means it's always expanding in bliss. So Srila Prabhupada has given us Bhagavatam with his purports, based on the previous Acharya's purports and mixed with his own realizations and observations. But his disciples and future generations of disciples should expand on these topics just like Narad was told to expand on these topics. There's so much in the Bhagavatam. It's an encyclopedia of spiritual knowledge, and the topics therein can be expanded more and more. There's one verse in the 3rd canto, I believe, in which Srila Prabhupada writes that this verse could be the subject of much scientific research. So you can have much scientific research. And in this, Srila Prabhupada is talking about scientific in the manner of professional scientists, as we understand it in the modern context. Just in the last 2 or 3 days, Achyutananda, one of Srila Prabhupada's first disciples, who was very famous here in Hyderabad when he was lecturing here as a young man. I think some of the older devotees here, they must have seen him. This Vraj Premlata Mataji, she probably, as a young woman, she probably saw him. He was quite a sensation as a preacher here. So he's just been sending me some emails. There seems to be quite a flutter among devotees, not only among devotees but among non-devotees, on the subject of cosmology, particularly that the earth is not globular or round in the sense that modern scientists understand it, and that the Bhagavatam actually gives, if we study the Bhagavatam description, we'll find that it gives the proper description. So I replied, I'm agnostic in these matters, because to get into cosmology requires so much research. This Golok chart made by Gokul Chandra Prabhu, that was largely a result of his assisting Dhanavir Maharaj in 1 year's intense. Dhanavir Maharaj is intense. When he gets into anything, he really gets into it. So in 1 year, with no prior knowledge, Dhanavir Maharaj, and he had a whole team of devotees assisting him, he got into researching cosmology according to the Bhagavatam, according to the Puranas, according to the Surya Siddhanta and other works. And he came up with this chart. So I'm just citing this to say that the Bhagavatam, there's so much, even materially, in these purports. Srila Prabhupada is talking about understanding Krishna via his potential and by his material energies. So the Bhagavatam gives full spiritual knowledge, but it also gives so much material knowledge, not exactly in the way that we would understand it from modern science. It's a different way from understanding. So there's so much to be understood. Revolutionary, even for the materialists. The Srila Prabhupada wanted to make this temple of the Vedic planetarium in Mayapur, giving the Bhagavatam cosmology, particularly to contrast that with the ideas of the modern astronomers, to show that the Puranic version is correct and that of modern science is wrong. It's really revolutionary. And Srila Prabhupada himself said that he wanted someone who was expert in this to describe it, because he said, Prabhupada himself expressed that he didn't exactly have a full grasp on all of this, because it's very technical stuff. And Shukdev Goswami described it in Bhagavatam, not particularly from the standpoint of an astronomer, but to demonstrate the greatness of the Supreme Lord in creating the material world, and how people on different planets, different planetary systems, the whole idea of planetary systems, Chodha Bhuvan, Chaturdash Bhuvan, that's not there in modern astronomy at all. But Shukadeva Goswami described how people in different planetary systems, they glorify the Lord. So we'll find that the residents of the Jambudweep, they offer prayers, and Ketumala and different dweeps, different islands within the universe, they offer prayers. So Shukadeva didn't write that exactly, he didn't give that exactly as an astronomer, but still, presentation of man's relationship with the personality, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there we have it in a nutshell. What is Srimad Bhagavatam? Srimad Bhagavatam is the philosophy of devotional service and the scientific presentation of man's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Scientific in this sense doesn't mean that you can look under a microscope and find the soul or the personality of Godhead. But scientific in the sense that it's presented in a way that we can intelligently understand. It's not just a matter of some blind faith, but it's presented with scientific, in a scientific way. Science means what? Nowadays, scientists, they say that science means, at its core, science means the study of energies. Everything is energy. So the Bhagavatam describes the various manifestations of the material energies of the Supreme Lord and also His spiritual energies. We'll find these terms again and again and again coming up in Srila Prabhupada's purports. Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta Kshetra Gyakya Tata Para Avidya Karma Sangyanyas Tritiya Shakti Rishyate. So that's actually a quote from the Vishnu Purana, which Srila Prabhupada sometimes quotes in his purports here, that Vishnu Shakti is it is superior. There is the transcendental who is the Supreme Lord Himself, who understands everything. Then there is the avidya, the potency of non-knowledge or ignorance, which is the material potency. And there is the marginal potency, the living being. So these are there's His internal potency, His external potency. His internal potency is the spiritual world, and that also manifests in so many ways. The Hladini Shakti, Shri, Bhu, Nila, Ila, Lila, Pushti, Tushti. There are 9 principal Shaktis of the Lord. The internal potency. And they also manifest in this Ramanuja Sampradaya. That yes, God is everything, but there are Vishesha, there are differences, there are different manifestations. And not that everything is all on the same level. There's a hierarchy also. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is especially meant for Kali Yuga as being Krishna in the form of transcendental sound, which is in a book form. So it's non-different from Krishna. And, as Srila Prabhupada writes in one of these 3 purports, the conditioned souls can be, quote, freed from the illusory energy based on sense enjoyment, unquote, simply by taking shelter of it. So there's very great need for distribution of this knowledge. All over the world, it's considered a great need of human society to educate everybody. Previously, that idea wasn't there. It was only with the advent of industrialization, and then society became more and more technical and technological. And then we thought we have to have everyone educated, otherwise how can they operate a smartphone? Well, smartphones came a lot later. But to live in the complex society, urban life requires that people, they have to learn how to live and how to use machines In a machine-based society, you have to learn to use machines, and then you have to have people to make machines, and make new machines, and invent new things. So you need a lot of educated people. But previously the idea that everyone should be educated, that wasn't there. Of course, everyone is educated, but not in the academic sense. Someone who is to work in agriculture, they'd also be educated, but not in their education would be in the field. And you can't say it's not education, because a farmer knows how to farm. There's probably no one in this room, no one among us who knows how to do farming, which will be a big problem whenever the society, if the flow of oil stops. India imports so much oil from the Gulf countries. If the supply is stopped, then Hyderabad's in trouble. Then people have to grow their own food. We don't know. Some vague idea that you put something in the ground and something comes up. But the farmers, they know how to. Even in India, we find the good farmers, very productive in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra side, then maybe less so in Orissa. The different people, it's very broadly speaking, different people have different abilities in that regard. But that's also education. But this education to understand the nature of God and His energies, that should be given to everyone in society. Someone is educated as a farmer, someone is educated as a potter, that also requires, just like nowadays it's all done in factories. We have plastic bottles instead of clay pots for water. Actually the clay pots are much more healthy. But again, once the oil stops, then the plastic supply stops also. And who knows how to make pots? Well, it looks easy, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can't do it. So the potter knows how to make pots. The barber knows how to shave. You may think, well, that's an easy thing to do, but the traditional blade is not the one you buy from the shop, but it's just, you've seen, it's just like this, a piece of metal and which is sharpened like that. They know how to do it without cutting. So there are various kinds of education. The women know how to husk the rice, then soak it and grind it for making idlis. Nowadays they don't know, because they just put it in the mixie, or they buy it from the cafe, from the hotel. But everyone has some kind of education. But the best education, Bhagavatavadhi, Vidya Bhagavatavadhi. The limit or the best, highest education is that of Bhagavatam, which is knowledge of the personality of Godhead and His various energies. And that should be distributed in society. In Vedic society, everyone was given this knowledge, even if everyone was not given Akshara Gyan. Akshara means Atuksha, means writing. But it also means, Akshara means everything from A to Ksha. The A is the first letter of the alphabet, and Ksha is the last. So Akshara Gyan means knowledge of writing. But it also means everything from beginning to end, which means knowledge of God. Because one of the names of God is Akshara, which means everything. Every subject that can be written about, thought about, talked about, contemplated, discussed, argued about, every topic is within A and Ksha. So He is everything. So that was given to, not everyone was given knowledge of writing, Akshara, but everyone is given knowledge of God. Some in a very
deeply philosophical, technical way, knowledge of Vedanta, study of Upanishads, and others in a simple way by telling, hearing the stories of Mahabharata, Ramayana, Puranas. This Bhagavatam is suitable for everyone. Of course, some sections are very deeply philosophical, but everyone can take advantage of this. It is meant for people in Kali Yuga who are less intelligent, so they can't understand everything, so many deep points of grammar, but that's not necessary. Nahi nahi rakshati dukrin karane. That won't help us at the time of death, being a great grammaticist. But if we have knowledge and faith in the topics of Bhagavatam, that will certainly help us. Knowledge of Bhagavatam comes from faith. If one doesn't have faith, then one cannot understand Bhagavatam. So this knowledge should be distributed to everyone. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada is very anxious to have his books distributed. And you might think, well, who's going to understand this? People have known, how can they understand these topics? But it's meant for everyone. It's meant for every living being, especially in the human form of life. People can take advantage of this knowledge. Society is degraded in Kali Yuga. People are becoming more and more sinful. Srila Prabhupada writes here, because of these basic sinful acts, that means illegitimate connection with women, intoxication, gambling, and unnecessary killing of animals. Srila Prabhupada continues, because of these basic sinful acts, man gradually became forgetful of his eternal relationship with God. And we can see that here in Hyderabad, that particularly in the big cities, these kind of sinful activities are promoted more and more, and people become less and less cognizant of or even interested in their relationship with the Supreme Lord. If one is living in the country, then one can see the material energy, material nature at work. One feels the heat of the summer. Whereas in the city there are electric fans and air conditioning. One feels the relief of the rains when they come. But in the city, life is man has made artificial energies. So we are superficially protected or shielded from the effects of material nature. So we think, or we don't think of God. We don't see the effects of material nature very directly. We don't see the crops growing. We don't see the animals being born. Recently I was staying on a farm in Tamil Nadu, and during the time I stayed there were two calves were born. First time I saw one actually being born from the beginning to the end. So you see, these things are seen: birth, death, old age and disease. They're not hidden away. They're seen. Everyone can, of humans, of animals, of plants. Everything is seen. But in the modern age, the cities are just made for people to have more and more sense gratification, and they don't see the material and God's nature at work. They are involved more and more in gross sinful activities. So people think this is very civilized living in the city, but it's actually great ignorance. They're ignorant of their relationship with God. So this knowledge of Bhagavatam should be distributed to give people knowledge of God. They're unaware of who they are, what is the purpose of life, what is our relationship with God. If it's all they think of God, they think of Sai Baba. Completely absurd. It would be laughable if it wasn't so popular. You just think some crazy people, but it's so many people, and it means that people don't think at all. When they come to the matter of religion, they don't think at all. That's true for everyone. Muslims, Christians, they just blindly follow, not only Hindus. So the Bhagavatam is meant to give scientific knowledge of God by which people can come to the platform of Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna consciousness. They're actually aware and thinking of God. That's what it's supposed to do. Vishnu Smaranam. Here we're having a Sravana-kirtanam camp. But Shravan and Kirtan, that should lead to Smaran. To remembering. Constant remembrance. Avismriti Krishna Padara Vindayo. There's everywhere, again and again in Gita and Bhagavatam. It's this never forgetting, in this, or always remembering. Ananyas Chintayanto Mama. Thinking of me without any diverting to anything else. So avismriti, never forgetting. Never forgetting the lotus feet of Krishna. So that means the subject matter of our mind should be Krishna. Otherwise, you see there's so many subject matters that Shukadev, he immediately said that to Parikshit Maharaj. When he met Parikshit, Parikshit was a king, so he had so many matters to oversee. Political matters, social matters, public welfare activities, legal matters, so many things he had to oversee. But Shukadev Goswami, on meeting him, said to Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nirnang Santi Sahasrasha Apashchatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grihamedhinam. He said that people, they have, he said 1,000. 1,000 is indicative of just many, many, many. People have so many matters to hear about and discuss, but the really important thing, Atma Tattva, knowledge of God and of the self, they're completely blind to it. They have no interest whatsoever, because they are Grihamedhi. Just like an ox is tied up to a post. So people are tied up to their householder life by the ropes of material attachment. That is their position. So this Bhagavatam is supposed to give the knowledge to people by which they can be freed from the ropes of material attachment by getting knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. By the knowledge of the scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead, one can be free from the material attachment. It's a densely, dark, deeply ignorant society, although they think they're very enlightened, because the children go to school and they learn so many useless things, and they think now we're very what do you think? They learn so many useless things which they're not even helpful in this life. What to speak of at the time of death? The Bengali saying, Srila Prabhupada sometimes used to quote that Shadhan kara bhajan kara marte janle hoy. So at the time of death, all the sadhana and bhajan, that will be tested. But if we didn't even do any sadhana or bhajan, then where's the question of it being tested? It's just go to Yamaraj, that's all. There's not even much testing needed. It's just like a constant conveyor belt of souls going to Yamaraj. There's not even any question of, well, did you do your sadhana properly? No one's doing. Who's doing sadhana? Srimad Bhagavatam it gives us the knowledge. We'll find not just the knowledge, but Prabhupada's purports. They are not just giving some philosophical elucidation, but they're also pushing, surrender to Krishna, don't waste your life. That mood of urgency is expressed therein. We'll find Srila Prabhupada, he had this mood of great urgency that people must take to Krishna consciousness. We must try to waken them up, help them, try to understand. Utishta, Jagrata, Prapya, Varanya, Bodhata. Get up, wake up, become aware of what you can achieve in this life. There's this idea, have confidence in yourself, what you can achieve. You can become a female space pilot and get blown to pieces. And we're in, where was that? In Kurukshetra? Was that there? They had this something Chola, what's her name? Kalpana Chola. And there was a big memorial to her. She had the distinction of being a woman astronautess of Indian origin who got inside an American, she was sent up by NASA, North American Space Agency or something like that, and blasted into space. But she didn't get that far because it blew up. About 1 minute into, it went up, and she was from Kurukshetra, I believe. So they was somewhere up there in Punjab. So they made a big hall in honor. Great hero. What does she do, hero? She got blown to pieces. So you can be a success. The idea that now I'm a big success, I'm being blasted into space. That was dramatic. Most people don't have such a dramatic end. They just go through their life trying to be big, trying to be successful, or at least trying to feed their family. Then they die. That we sung yesterday. Heno avatar ja ratina hoilo lochan bole shei papi elo or gallo. Speaking about Nityananda, that such a merciful avatar, people have no interest in him. What can we say about such people? Biography. They were born, they died. That's all. That's all. And they committed some sinful activities in between. There's nothing else to say. Their life is spoiled, completely wasted. So, Bhagavatam, this knowledge should be distributed. Srila Prabhupada writes in this commentary, even those who after the enjoyment of this material world can also take shelter of the great science of Srimad Bhagavatam, and they will be successful at the end. So even if you want to enjoy this material world, you can study Bhagavatam. The only problem is as soon as you start to study it, you won't want to enjoy the material world anymore. Because Shukadev Goswami begins immediately talking about the uselessness of trying to enjoy this material world. We'll find in here many of the themes they're repeated. Shinvata Shraddhaya Nityam, that comes in the third line of text 53. That also comes elsewhere here in the second canto. Shinvata Shraddhaya Nityam Grinatascha Svacheshtitam Kalena Nati Dirghena Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. That if one regularly hears this Bhagavatam with faith and tries to understand it in a submissive mood, then within a short time Bhagavan will look into his heart. Of course, Bhagavan's already there, but he will manifest himself within the heart. So this Bhagavatam is meant for solving all the problems of human life. Of course, Gita is there also, in essence. And Bhagavatam in a more developed way. So this education should be given. These boys here are studying in Gurukul. It's not the traditional Gurukul, but the essence of the education is Srimad Bhagavatam. If you understand that, then you understand everything. Vidya Bhagavata Avadhi. Srila Prabhupada warns in these purports, as he often does, about people speaking Bhagavatam with personal motivations. That will spoil the deliverance of the message. And it has become a tradition in India. Not that everything that's traditional in India is good. Some of the traditions, it has a good basis, but it gets perverted. So the idea of having recitations of Bhagavatam is very good, but when people do it for personal motivation, then it becomes very problematic. Particularly people who do so in a very attractive manner, so that people will like to come and hear them and give them plenty of donations. Then the whole purpose becomes spoiled. Because Bhagavatam is undoubtedly very pleasing to hear for purified people. It is Satang prasangan mama virya sangvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana kata. It's like hearing these topics of Krishna, his glories, in the association of devotees. It is like a tonic for the ears and the heart. Tajoshanadashva pavargavatmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishati. And the result of hearing it is that one advances on the path of liberation. One becomes detached from this material world. One's faith in Krishna, one's feelings for Krishna, and one's actual love for Krishna, they all develop gradually. But if someone is speaking with the motive of entertaining, that doesn't happen. Because entertaining the mind, or even the intelligence, is different to transmitting Krishna. Bhagavatam is Krishna. Topics of Krishna are not different from Krishna. But if we take Krishna as an object or to be manipulated for our sense gratification, that everything in this world is meant for my enjoyment, so there's this thing called Krishna or Bhagavatam, that must also be meant for my enjoyment. And people find it easier to accept in that way. So sometimes people think, well, that's better preaching if we do it in a way that people will be pleased. Deliberately trying to please them. But rather we should present the topics in a manner that will enlighten them, and they will become pleased on the spiritual platform. They can actually become happy by becoming free from false concept of enjoyment. So Srila Prabhupada warns that we should be afraid of the professional reciters who jump straight to the internal pastimes of the Lord, especially the Rasa Leela. By this, the speakers and listeners, Srila Prabhupada says, fall down deeply into the clutches of external energy. They're hearing the highest topics, but by hearing the highest topics, being both the speaker and the hearers unqualified, they both fall down deeply into the material energy. They don't become elevated. So, Narad was ordered, as Srila Prabhupada says, he was ordered by his spiritual master to take the matter very seriously in a missionary spirit. He was ordered to spread it widely. But there's a difference between the missionary spirit and the mercenary spirit. The mercenary spirit means the money-making spirit. There's a big difference. It may superficially seem to be the same thing. The mercenary reciters of Bhagavatam, it might seem that they are more successful in bringing more people. But they don't bring them to Krishna. They can have more people at their Bhagavatam recitations, but they don't, the hearers don't advance in Krishna consciousness by that. Rather, they are prone to fall down deeply into the clutches of external energy. So on other points there are so many points from this section of Bhagavatam. The idea of the transmission of Bhagavatam via the parampara. So the parampara means that it should be proper speakers, proper hearers, then become proper speakers, and then the hearers of those speakers, if they're proper, that means they've actually caught the mood, the essence of Bhagavatam, which is Krishna te kila cheshta. Everything should be done for Krishna. Pure devotional service. Ahaituki apratihata bhakti, for the transcendent Lord. Unmotivated and uninterrupted devotion. So this comes through the disciplic succession. Here at this point, we find Brahma is giving to Narad this knowledge. Brahma himself had heard from Bhagavan himself directly, Narayana. So the parampara is being begun chronologically. Narayana to Brahma to Narad, and then Narad, he gave this knowledge to so many disciples, most importantly to Vyas, and then from Vyas came, the knowledge was recorded, but the knowledge should be of Bhagavatam should be spread widely, but it must be preserved as it is. That means it may be developed. Different commentators have given their commentaries, but at the same time the core message has to be preserved. The commentators giving commentaries doesn't mean they change the message, but being inspired by Shuddha Saraswati, the spiritual intelligence, who is the Vidya Vadhu. She is the wife of transcendental knowledge, the wife of the Supreme Lord. So she enters the hearts of bona fide devotees and inspires them to glorify the Lord in various ways, but not changing. The knowledge should be handed down, Srila Prabhupada writes, in a way that is, quote, not mental speculation by the mundane wranglers, but is uncontaminated, eternal, perfect knowledge beyond the jurisdiction of the material modes. So one has to receive this knowledge from the proper source. That means someone who's following the line of Shukadev Goswami, who didn't teach Bhagavatam for any purpose other than to glorify the Supreme Lord for the benefit of his disciple Parikshit and for others also. There were others present also, apart from Parikshit. So we should receive it from the right source, and then, as Brahma told Narad, you develop this, preach the message, but without any adulteration. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a ripened fruit. If a ripened fruit is on the tree, it has to be passed down carefully, hand to hand, so that it comes down without being broken or damaged. So these are a few points that are important for our understanding of Bhagavatam. What is the nature of Bhagavatam? What are the glories of Bhagavatam? How we should receive it from the right source, how we should distribute it also. So by reading these books of Srila Prabhupada, particularly Bhagavatam is a great encyclopedia of spiritual knowledge. Yesterday I spoke about Chaitanya Charitamrita, how it's all so blissful. But there's also a lot of important spiritual knowledge. The knowledge is not non-blissful, but generally when we think of blissful, we think of the pastimes of the Lord, His interactions with His devotees. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's also a lot of important spiritual knowledge which helps us to understand Bhagavatam. Anyway, it's a vast subject, and I'll finish there for now, unless there's any question about this or comments. Yeah, please. Is there another mic that the question can be asked through? We should all imbibe this mood that Srila Prabhupada gives us in his books, that being eager to receive the message of Bhagavatam and give to others, spread it to others. Yatha Shruta, as we have heard it, and Yatha Shakti, exactly as we have heard it and according to our ability. That may be done in various ways. Speaking, distributing the books, writing books, assisting others in doing these activities, living according to the books.
How we should, in what attitude we should read the purports which are written by Prabhupada's disciples?
In what attitude should we read the purports written by Prabhupada's disciples? Well, it's natural that that comes. Purports are written from the 10th canto, 14th chapter to the end, and then 11th canto and 12th canto. And also most of the Mukundamala Stotra is with translations and purports by Prabhupada's disciples. Well, we're probably not going to read them with the same level of faith as we read them as Prabhupada's. But actually, a lot of the work on these translations and purports was done by Gopi Pranadana Prabhu, who's now, unfortunately for us, passed away. Much of the purports, they're actually taken directly from the Acharya's commentaries. And Gopi Pranadana Prabhu was a consummate Sanskrit scholar who had very great faith in Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara. So whatever is the translations we can take as fully authorized. And the purports, as much as they are from the previous acharyas. And even the comments about modern society and this and that, they are mostly following the Krishna conscious conclusion. Although there are some nonsense things in there, to tell you the truth, talking about human rights and how in the Western world, as if the Western world is culturally superior. There's definitely some non-enlightened comments there, but in general, it's quite good.
We say that Srimad Bhagavatam is scientific presentation of knowledge of God.
We say Bhagavatam is scientific presentation of knowledge of God. Bhagavatam itself says, Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam.
So this, as soon as we use the word scientific, so it pertains to Anuman Praman and Pratyaksha Praman.
As soon as we say the word scientific, it pertains to Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Shabda Pramana. Yeah, I guess you could say that.
So then, knowledge of God is about Shabda Praman. So,
oh, you want to get into Praman Tattva, very big subject. Yeah, Shabda Praman, that is the highest Praman, but that's received through our mind and senses, through our ears and senses. Is it not? So the question again comes, how can we understand it through our contaminated mind and senses? Go read the prayers of the personified Vedas. Same question is asked. That Brahman is transcendental and we are conditioned. How can transcendence be transmitted through the sounds of the Vedas to materially conditioned souls? And the answer is the prayers of the personified Vedas. In short, by the mercy of Bhagavan. Atashri Krishna namadi nabhavadgrahyam indrayai sevon mukhe jivado swayameva spuratyada. Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes cannot be understood by the mundane senses. But when we become eager to serve Him, beginning with the tongue, then He reveals Himself to us.
This point is not scientific.
It is scientific. It is. Huh? Well, that's true of the materialist also. That where do they get their intelligence from? Huh? Epistemology, in the English word, is not exactly the same, but it's similar. Praman tattva. And epistemology means how we know what we know. But epistemology is the Western study of epistemology is hopeless because you have to. Where can you begin? Where do you have to accept that some axioms, Descartes, is his attempt at building up actually he was a theist, but he was attempting to build up a scientific system of knowledge by which we can be sure. So he famously said, cognito ergo sum, that I am cognizant, I think, therefore I know that I exist. But then someone will point out, well, you're already presuming that you exist, that you exist. Otherwise, how can you say I think? So you're just caught in it's hopeless. You can't go anywhere. If you want to make a wholly empiric system, you can't. You have to accept that there is anything to be studied at all means that there is reality. Now we're just talking logic without any shastra. That means there is reality beyond what we perceive. The fact that I can do an algebra equation and you do an algebra equation and we both come to the same conclusion means that there is a reality external to our own individual existence. This is metaphysics. It's philosophy. It's not science per se. Science, what they call science, they just skip all the philosophical problems. The hardcore so-called empirical scientists. But if you speak with your average student in a college in India who's trying to be so-called intelligent atheist, they can't even understand all these points. They just think, science, science. It's written in the book, science. Sri Einstein Uvacha. They have no... well, Einstein was more intelligent than obviously, but even philosophically much more intelligent than these block-headed so-called scientists who don't... Like this Richard Dawkins. If Einstein was there, he would... I'm sure he would have no time for Dawkins. He's such a... philosophically extremely foolish and dogmatic. He's not a scientist in that sense. He's a dogmatist. Anyway, what did you want to say? Question, yeah.
Here we heard in Bhagavatam that Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for Kali Yuga.
Bhagavatam is meant for?
Kali Yuga.
Bhagavatam, yeah, the Bhagavatam as we have it now is particularly meant for Kali Yuga, yeah.
But now we see many devotees, they rationalize that.
Now we see many devotees who rationalize that. I don't know what you're going to say next, but whatever it is, it sounds like they're not really devotees at all. Because as soon as you start to rationalize in a manner that minimizes the parampara message, then you're not really a devotee at all. Question stopped halfway through. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's the end of this session. Hare Krishna.